Tell me more about the part about living your potential. How does that look like? What do you think that right now you're living your potential?
Oh, this word potential is a tricky word. It's like I don't even think it's a useful word anymore. It's often used, potential is often used in a negative context, I
That's
found.
true. That's true. It's like you have
Yeah.
potential means that you're not there yet.
Yes. Or here's the one to watch, like in relationships.
Mm.
Well, he has, yeah, he has potential, or our relationship has potential.
Mm.
Like those are big red flags for me. I don't, if I find myself thinking that now, I'm like, oh, wake up, girl. Let's not live on potential anymore. You did that for 13 years. And,
Um,
I mean, that's an interesting word. So now I wouldn't call it potential, but I would say, you know, yeah, I still have more potential. And I think that I have desires
mm.
to have a bigger impact
Mm.
on on the world, on humanity than I'm currently having.
Mm.
But what I get now is, am I living a life where every day I'm working more in alignment with my life purpose? Yes.
Mm.
And I have relationships around me that are truly nourishing, and
Mm.
I have, I have everything I actually really need around me, and I'm living a conscious life. And so I don't know, maybe we're talking more about fulfillment or happiness or something like that. And so yes, I'm living a fulfilling life,
Mm.
and I do want to have greater impact.
Mm.
And but I have less controlling, like I have a less clear idea of exactly how that's going to be. Like I used to think I wanted to be like a big public speaker
Mm.
and be on television and be doing, like, I still have little fantasies that I want to have, you know, a, a big TV show that we talk about connection, all this stuff. And
Mm.
maybe that's in my cards, maybe it's not, I don't know. But more I feel surrendered and open to how uh, I never used to say the word God, but now I feel more comfortable just saying God, spirit, how that wants to unfold in the best way. So
Mm.
I am open to that, and I'm not exactly sure how it looks. Did that answer your
Um,
question?
yes, I mean, I'm smiling because I mean, my podcast name is Awakening Dreams.
Mm,
And I'm just hearing a very interesting perspective, right? Like your dream, it's it's you want to have a greater impact, but it doesn't mean that you want to be like a great like a yeah a world renowned speaker with a TV show. It's all the haves, you know. So the haves are not that important. You are surrendering to the universe, but you just have this purpose. Uh, the North Star, I think you mentioned earlier in the
yeah.
interview, yeah, a North Star where you just keep going, and daily, as long as you know you're at the right direction, and you mentioned about nourishing relationships, then you are living an authentic life that's aligned with what you want, right?
Yeah.
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 Tell me about the term conscious life, because yeah, you mentioned you're a conscious relating coach. This
Yeah.
word conscious to me is interesting because I've never really encountered this word.
Mm, that's a good question. I just want to first share, it feels really good to hear your summary of what I shared, and I feel seen. And I'm noticing in your questions, I'm talking about things that, like, I didn't know what I was going to say, but as I'm saying them, it's revealing something to me.
Mm.
And your particular listening and your questions are really, I'm really enjoying.
Oh,
I'm really enjoying them. So I just wanted to say that.
thank you so much. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
that's my objective as well. You know, I hope that when someone comes to my show, as we talk, as we connect, I also hope that I bring that my guest brings back something, some new insights or perspectives about themselves. Yeah. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that feedback to me.
Yeah. And this question about what is conscious, that's a really good question. I think for me, we talked about the mindfulness needed in order to relate to one another more authentically and create more authentic connection and intimacy. I would say conscious living for me means not only creating mindfulness with my relations, but how I'm relating to life. So,
Or can you
you
repeat
know,
that again?
I'll try. So before we talked about the mindfulness needed in order to connect authentically with
Mhm,
another.
mhm,
For me, conscious living is that mindfulness as it's related to life, like how I'm relating to life, how I'm waking up and having mindfulness about what am I feeling today? What are the thoughts that are running in my mind? What are the practices that are going to elicit more clarity, more connection to the moment, more
mhm,
surrender? So for me, that's a very, a morning ritual of meditation and some exercise and how I'm paying attention to how I'm interacting with my children. And when I sit down to have a cup of tea, am I consciously am I noticing how I'm relating to that cup of tea, or like
mhm,
what is this negative cloud that's come over me? How can I sit with that and
mhm,
be conscious about what's happening? And
mhm,
therefore, these moments, they add up. Some days I do better at it than others, but the practice is really coming. It's like coming back. When we talk about meditation. So in meditation, the practice is to not stop thinking.
mhm,
It's to notice when we're thinking and let
mhm,
it go and start again. Come back to
mhm,
our breath. Come back to
mhm,
the moment. We're not trying to find perfection like we talked about before. It's
mhm,
about coming back over and over again to awareness and
mhm,
to choice.
mhm,
And so that's what I would call conscious, like a conscious
mhm,
life for
mhm,
me. It may be
mhm.
different for other people, but that's how I relate to that
Mm,
term, that expression.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting because meditation is, to me, it sounds like I need to find some time. I need to sit down. I need to just sit, do nothing, and notice my thoughts and let it go. But then living a conscious life, I don't necessarily need to meditate. I need to be aware of like the things that I do or the choices that I make, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's not just relating to someone else, but it's just, yeah, like you mentioned, just waking up in the morning and thinking about, I don't know, yeah, just being aware of my thoughts and my choice for the day. Yeah.
Yes. And actually, a big part of it, Elle, and where I work with other people in my one-on-one practice is it's also noticing when something is up for us. Maybe we're triggered by something somebody else said. Maybe there's like a mood that's come over us. Maybe we're dealing with grief and loss.
Mm,
And I teach people how to not override that,
mm,
but to actually make space for it. and to get curious with themselves, like, what is actually happening with me right now? As opposed to, like, when something is happening and there's an emotional charge, let's just use grief, for example. There's not a lot of space. I mean, culturally, it may be different in, you know, different cultures. You know, in some cultures, we make space for grief. In the US, and I don't know what it's like in Singapore, but there's really not much space that's left for loss or grief. And so, you know, people are almost expected to get up and just move on, you know, after a short period of time. But I think it's really important to actually sit with one's grief and make space for it. What's happening here? Find expression for it. So those are the ways that I actually work with people, is like giving them the container and holding space for them to be with some of the more difficult emotions that are at first kind of hard for them to be with by themselves.
Okay. I want to know, as you were describing about this conscious life that you have, and also like this, I would call it the life purpose, or your guiding, your North Star. Was there any difficult decisions that you needed to make in order to embark on this journey, on to have this lifestyle?
Hell yeah. Lots of difficult, where to begin? There's been many difficult, I mean, it's never, I mean, some of the decisions are easy because you just know the answer, but they're difficult experiences. They're difficult. It's not like a comfortable journey by any means, you know? I mean, I guess it started, one of the decisions that I made, well, that wasn't such a difficult decision, you know, to take kind of like a non-mainstream route. When I studied a somatic body work called body mind centering in my early 20s. And I had to pack my car up and move from the East Coast to California, and not know what was there for me when I got there. And, you know, nobody knew what this work was, but my heart, I had to follow a heart calling. So there were decisions like that. But then there were decisions like breaking up my family when I got to, you know, when my ex-husband and I got divorced, because I knew that there was something in our relationship that was not allowing either of us to live our best lives. You know, that it felt like the right decision for the unfolding of both of our, you know, souls, our spirits, our life purpose. And that was a very hard decision. Most recently, I mean, and there's been other ones, but most recently, after I got divorced, I ended up I just kind of fell into this corporate job of selling radio advertising here where I live in Asheville, North Carolina. And at the time, I really needed some stability because I was now a single mom. At the time, I'd been a massage therapist, and I had just moved here from California. And I hadn't quite built up my massage practice, but I needed to figure out my income. And so for a while, I had 2 small kids, and I was flying back to California 1 week a month, seeing 20 people in 5 days just to make our rent, you know. And at the time I was also we have a food stamp program here. It's called, so I was getting help from, you know, for food, and that was a really, really hard time. And so I ended up finding this job, and it actually, this job just showed up. I didn't look for it. It literally was handed to me. And I ended up making, you know, more money in that job than my ex-husband and I had made together, living in California, which is a much more expensive place to live than North Carolina. And that was amazing for a while. I kind of, I had the stability, I had some structure, but it was not my heart calling. And I knew that. I knew that all along. So I had to sort of sacrifice that for stability with my family. And over time, that job allowed me the freedom to start exploring circling and authentic relating. But eventually, after 8 years of that kind of stability, I knew that I had to take the risk of leaving and dive full time into this purpose work. And so that's right where I am right now, is like rebuilding. And that's not an easy decision when you have 2 children, one that's supposed to start college next year. I have a house to pay for. There's a lot of sort of pragmatic needs. So that's been I knew the right decision, but I had to really face a lot of fear and find my courage and my faith and my trust and take that leap. Yeah.
I hear a few of this key milestones in your life that you made really difficult decisions. I mean, the definitely the divorce is definitely a very big one, and then leaving your stable job to do this purpose work. And for both of these examples you gave, the trade-off is stability, right? You have a lot of fear, so it's like heart calling. You said your heart, it's right, versus stability. Why is the pain worth it?
Why is it worth it?
Yes, it's so there's fear and there's pain, right? Like, and for you the stake is much higher. I mean, you have your 2 children with, I mean, one is breaking up the family. Now the second one is, basically your pragmatic needs you mentioned. Yeah. So why is this heart calling so important that it's worth destabilizing? Going into this risk, this fear, facing this fear.
That's such a fantastic question. There's 2 big things, like the pain of thinking that I didn't live my life purpose and answer that calling is much greater. Like if I imagine waking up in 5-10 years and not having followed that, like that thought, I'd rather die. Like that to me is to me that is like far worse than the pain of like, what it, like the temporary pain based on the decisions. So that's one thing. And the other very important thing is I've got 2 young women watching me. They're watching me. And I don't think that it's any mistake or random occurrence that I have 2 daughters. And that's another thing that drives me, is generational transformation through, my ancestry to where I am, and seeing my children and feeling also urgent about shifting how, as women, we're an important part of moving from more of a, patriarchal paradigm where men have powered over to more of a power with paradigm. That's, that women, I believe, have much more collaborative leadership ability, where we want to power with, we don't want to power over. And so I too, part of that is I want my children to know that they can do this too for themselves, and to see their mom go through this, make this decision, follow my dream, do the work I do, that feels important to me, as opposed to just kind of landing into this more masculine structure of the corporate world to create only stability. Like, to me, that's only half the story.
When you describe that you rather die because the pain of not living your dream is much worse, I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned about actually the pain is actually temporary, that gave me relief. Yeah. And when you mentioned about your two daughters, that's really, really inspiring. Yeah, I can totally imagine your daughters looking up to you as a important role model. And if I tie back to when you were young, where your mother laughed at your aspirations, uh, I totally understood when you mentioned about the generational transfer.
I believe that we can heal even our lineage of ancestry. I mean, I come from my ancestry is from like England, and which is wrought with brutality, colonialism. I mean, I'm learning more and more about that, and that is, there's almost like a repulsion in me sometimes about all of that. And I've seen, even in my lifetime, some of the women in my family, they feel like very strong women that have never actually come to full expression or something. And, growing up in my family, it was just a very patriarchal society. I grew up in South Africa, actually. And, but my family goes back in South Africa a couple generations. But I grew up in a family where, dad was the breadwinner, he made the money. Mom was the homemaker. My brothers were given a private education. My sister and I were not. My brothers were given a lot of attention. My sister and I were not. Although I demanded more than my sister did. I was like, hey, pay attention. But and that was just, so it was just a very male-oriented society. And so we're shifting. That needs to shift very, very much so. And I've got these two really strong daughters. And when you said, I'm sure your daughters look up to you, I had a little bit of like I noticed I had a bit of a cringe or something. And I think what that was is maybe they do. I don't know. Like, my oldest daughter is wired differently than me. And so, she'll often make fun of me when, I'll say to her, so what does that feel like for you? Or what's it like? And she's like, oh, Mom, can't we just have some small talk? Like, she cannot like, it's hard for her that I want to go so deep with everything. And, and she'll kind of resist it, but like her friends love that about me. And so I think it'll just be interesting to see how she tells the story of that when she's older.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she does look up to me in a certain way, but she would never admit it,
Yeah.
It's just
a lovely story. And yeah, I just feel the love. And I mean, when you were describing your daughter, it just reminds me of my journey, where I think, when I was 20 years old, 20 or 30 years old, I was still in the stage where I didn't have that understanding or compassion about, that what my mom had to go through, or like the decisions that she made was the best decision she had during that time. right? But
Yeah.
then when I was younger, I will be like comparing her against others. Like, why can't I have a complete family, for example? I grew up as a single parent in a single parent family. Yeah.
Oh, you did.
Yeah. So it's just things like that. But right now I just have uh respect and so much love and understanding for my mom. Like even
Mm.
like things that triggered me, like you say things that cringe, that I really cringe. But now I look at her when she's still doing her own thing. She did not change. But it's just like when I look at her doing her thing, I just see her like she's so cute.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, when did that change for you?
Um, I think as I was also going through my own healing journey, and there was this moment where I realized that okay, all the way till I was 30 years old, I was miserable in the sense that I felt abandoned because
Mm.
I mentioned that I came to Singapore when I was 13. So I came here alone. And my mom, because I got a scholarship. So my mom was a single
Oh.
parent family, and through the years, we just got bursaries or whatever. And fortunately, I liked studying, and my results were good enough to get a scholarship. But at 13 years old, I left my family. So and throughout those years, it was just lonely, very lonely, uh,
Mm.
um, and whenever I look at my family in Malaysia, I just feel that I'm just so not included, right? I'm totally left out. I can't be there. While
Oh.
they are accumulating memories, and for me, I have nothing. I don't have. It's just like a black hole. Um,
Oh.
yeah, so it was a lot of loneliness, a lot of sadness, and yeah, I just felt like I was being abandoned.
Mm.
And then finally, when I was 30 years old, um, yeah, I had a reframe where my mom sent me to Singapore because she loves me. It's not because she
Mm.
abandoned me. She wanted me
Oh.
to have a better future, right? She sees that, hey, this girl, she's great at her studies. What what other opportunity can I give her? Right. And it
Mhm.
must be so heartbreaking for her
Yeah.
to separate herself, right? From a
Yes.
little girl who's 13
Yes.
years old. Yeah.
Oh.
And once I got that perspective, a lot of hidden memories came back. Like
Mm.
like the moment where she dropped me at the boarding school, and she was just and I was so excited, right? It's a new country. As a boarding school, I need to go and meet my new friends, and I didn't look back. And she, yeah, but and then I remember the look on her face, like how sad she was.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh.
So these were things
Oh.
where once 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 you choose to see something, all this starts coming in. Yeah. And then I felt like, oh, my
Yeah.
mom loves me so much. Yeah. And the
Oh.
pain was worth it. You know.
That's a beautiful story. I love how we can have like a new, what you're pointing to is we can have a new seeing or a new perspective. And then we look back at our lives and suddenly everything looks a little different. It's just, that's a beautiful testament to that like it's really in a lot of what happens in this authentic relating kind of work is that like we see a new perspective, a new way of seeing, and that can change everything. It changes the past and what we see and notice. It changes how we look at the present moment and what's going to happen for us in the future. So that's a really beautiful story. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I'll sum
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it's been so much. I can't believe the time flew. It was such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. It was really wonderful for me as well. I mean, to hear about your story and your dreams. And yeah, it's such a remarkable and courageous woman to go through things that you have been through. Um, to check out, is there one key message you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, I guess the message is it's never too late to learn a new skill. This is the good news about authenticity, authentic relating, communication, relationship. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. Yes, what's happened in the past informs who you are, but every day, every moment is an opportunity to shift, to try something different. And that, you know, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling, because loneliness is a huge epidemic, actually. If you're feeling like a hunger for more connection with people, for speaking truth more, for being more authentic, there's something that's been, you've been kind of hiding or holding back, that, you know, for whatever reason, it's not too late. And that there's lots of resources. You know, I know you do coaching, I do coaching, I'm available. There's lots of online platforms. But I urge you to answer that calling, to take the courageous step of trying something new or making yourself uncomfortable, because the rewards of connection and more intimacy are beyond your imagination. It is really the key. The quality of our relationships is a reflection of the quality of our lives. So that's the message I would like to say. Like, it's not too late. Take a step for yourself.
Thank you very much, Cathy, for today's chat.
Yes, thank you, Elle. Thank you so much for having me. And I would love, you know, if there's anybody listening to this that's interested in working with me, to follow the links that you provide and to reach out to me. And, you know, I work online, so it doesn't matter if you're in Singapore or the United States or anywhere, that I would love to be of service. Yeah, it's been such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. Much love to you.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Dreams with Raw. If you like our show, please follow our Facebook or Instagram at Relating Authentic World, or subscribe on the major podcast platforms. Join us again when we will talk to other inspiring women all around the world about their courageous dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.